And yet again, it's because of the Spanish chroniclers that we have the critical evidence.
And what happened was that I started to read a chronicle by a priest named Murua. Well, Murua was apparently somebody who was sympathetic towards the Indians. And in some sense, I believe that the shamans who came to him must have trusted him. They didn't trust him enough to explain to him what the story meant, but they trusted him enough that he would take it down and leave it to posterity, and this he did. In my opinion, the myth concerning Pachacuti Inca and the beginning of the empire is the single most important document that's come down to us from the pre-Columbian Americas. It's the complete explanation of the origins of the Inca Empire. The myth begins by describing a terrible rain. It rained for 30 days and 30 nights, and it appeared that the entire world might be destroyed by a flood. And then an apparition appeared above the city of Cusco of an enormous man, and in one hand he carried a conch shell, and in the other hand he carried a staff. And so this was a vision of Viracocha. Then Pachacuti decided to go up above the city and to meet with the vision. And he spoke to it, and he said, "Do not let the world be destroyed by a flood. Do not let there be a Pachacuti," which literally means overturning of space-time. It's the Andean term for the end of a world age. Now that's the story, and the meaning of the story is entirely in accord with everything we've said so far, for example, about the Inca prophecy. First of all, it specifies in the myth that Pachacuti Inca called the apparition of Viracocha brother. And it also said that Pachacuti Inca was the son of Manco Capac. What that is a reference to is that all Inca kings from the lineage of Manco Capac are the regents of Jupiter on Earth. And when he called Viracocha brother, this is meant to put him on an equal footing with the planet Saturn as Jupiter's regent. So the first thing that you have described in the myth is a conjunction of Saturn and Jupiter. The first thing I did when I came across this conjunction was to check it in the planetary tables. And again, it's not so rare an event. There's a conjunction of Saturn and Jupiter every 20 years. But it wasn't until I looked at it on computer software that I found what was really going on. And I was actually quite shocked when I saw this, because the conjunction of Saturn and Jupiter in the reign of Pachacuti Inca took place in exactly the same place in the stars as the conjunction of Saturn and Jupiter of 650 AD.
When the conjunction of Saturn and Jupiter occurred in 650 AD, it was, according to myth, when the god Viracocha first gave the Incas the right to rule. 800 years later, the conjunction repeated right on the heels of his father's prophecy of doom. Because although the conjunction of Saturn and Jupiter happen every 20 years, the pattern they create takes 800 years to complete. This conjunction is what changed everything for Pachacuti. Yes, if the stars continued to move as they'd always done, then the bridge to the ancestors would be lost exactly as his father's prophecy said. Yet he chose to see the repetition of this rare conjunction as reaffirmation of God's covenant with the Incas, in flat contradiction to his father's prophecy. From that moment on, he declared a new world age, the age of the fifth sun, and he set about creating the Inca Empire of the Sun.
Pachacuti was not a fatalist. That was why he could not accede to the wishes of his father, and why, in fact, he couldn't accept the terms of the prophecy. But the commencement of the fifth sun was very odd, because it was born with prospects of only a very short lifespan. And so it's inconceivable that Pachacuti Inca would declare the commencement of a new world age, knowing that everything would be over in a century. And when I realized that Pachacuti Inca knew this, as expressed in the myth of Murua, it finally hit me what his vision was. He conceived the idea that if, as Andean tradition has said all along, as above, so below, what would happen if the people below began to engage in rituals which would ask Viracocha to change the course of the stars?
So this is what it was all for, this empire, these works. Sullivan believed this was the secret of the Incas. They'd made such efforts to preserve their myths as a message in a bottle, to leave a vision, a map of their beliefs written on the very landscape itself. Taken such care and effort to make sure that we knew that the Inca Empire had been for more than just the comfort and vanity of its rulers, more than brute survival and conquest. This empire and the people who built it had a purpose, a vision, a destiny, to turn back the hand of fate itself.
I think anytime you invest a lot of time in studying some era in history or some people, that you reach a point where you realize that the attempt to keep yourself completely separate and objective cuts off your powers of empathy and connection. And I particularly was concerned about trying to understand how an empire which created as much beauty and was so practical as to turn its stonemasons loose to build beautiful agricultural terraces rather than temples, could at the same time sacrifice children. The Capacocha ceremony was the ceremony which involved human sacrifice. It involved first an inpouring from all over the empire of tribute of all kinds, but including 1 or 2 unblemished children, about the age of 12 on down to perhaps 7 or 8. The children to be sacrificed came from, no more than 2 would come from any one tribe, and we know that each tribe was descended from, ideally from a different constellation. From all the accounts that we have, the number of sacrifices was strictly limited to 500, and the ritual was performed either every year at December solstice or every 4th year.
The Incas never gave up hoping that the prophecy would not be fulfilled. Never gave up hoping that the stars could be stopped. But the heavens never did stop.
The children were sent back in the direction of their homeland. And the descriptions say that they walked in, as far as possible, undeviating straight lines to the horizon. Well, the significance that the children were sent back to their homelands is that their purpose in being sacrificed was to bring a message back to the homeland and the stars. And in fact, the words that are used, there's an alternate word for human sacrifice, and it was called kachawi, which means message or messenger. The children were literally messengers. And we know from other descriptions of Andean religion that if one wanted to make a plea to God on high, one made it through one's homeland, not directly to God. And so you have a picture of children of all the tribes in the Andes, related to all the stars in the sky, being sent to their homeland, being sacrificed at their place of origin, being sent home to the stars, each with the same message. And this message quite literally constitutes the secret of the Incas, because the word Capacocha literally means the secret plea or business of the Inca. And the prayer that the priests uttered as the children were led back to their Waka homelands was, "May the sun and moon stay young," meaning may the age of the 5th sun remain young. May the world not turn over, literally, ama pachacuti, may space